Hey guys, it's DC and welcome to the Soap Sanctuary where all soap lovers are welcome. This is my review of the Hulu series Love, Victor. This is my first ever non-soap review, guys, but it's here. Now, let me just get right into it. As you guys can see from the thumbnail, I asked, was it unrealistic? I'm gonna say this to answer the question. I do believe that Love, Victor was way more realistic than Love, Simon, right? More nuances are played off, right? You know, Love, Simon, I felt like it almost felt very utopian from the start of the movie to the end, how he came out and everyone was just so accepting, and that was great. That's another story that we can hear and that should be told. But it was hard for me to relate with that in the movie because I'm like, that's not that I can relate to. And I think a lot of viewers felt that way, and that's why we have Love, Victor now, right? You know, the thing about it is that even with Victor, even though his family was not as accepting, I feel like we saw their slow journey to getting towards acceptance over the seasons, which I appreciated, right? Now, let's talk a little bit about the inception, right? I didn't like his dealings with Mia. I have my notes right here, guys. I didn't like his dealings with Mia, but it was realistic because most people figuring out their sexuality will usually date the sex that is expected of them today, right? Which kind of sucks because the other person, which in this case Mia, kind of becomes almost like a test drive in collateral damage, which is something I didn't really like. But in the end, I like to think the writers did right by Mia, right, towards the end, by giving her a proper romance with Andrew. Someone who really loved and cared for her and was fully committed to her, since a lot of the men in her life, from Victor to her father, lacked commitment to her. They lacked that full presence and commitment with her, right? Now, speaking of fathers and parent dynamics, let's talk about Victor's parents, the Salazars. Both parents had their own individual journey in accepting not only Victor, but also themselves too, right? The dad was a bit more receptive, right, than the mom was. And of course, culture, religion played a role into how they viewed Victor's sexuality, which I can relate to as a gay Haitian man. Because I feel like even in parents, they both have their own journey, because they're both individuals. They function as a unit, as a couple, as a whole, but they both are individuals. And we got to see that with Victor's parents. They both had their own individual process and trying to figure out and understand Victor, right? Now, we even see how they struggled to accept Pilar's relationship with Felix. Understand that their little girl was she was growing up and she's gonna date, and this is the reality. And they were also faced with some new realities themselves because they met when they were in high school. But now they're a lot more older parents. They're not the same people they were back then. And so they got to figure out, how does the relationship look now with who I understand myself to be now at this point, as opposed to when we first met? How does that look, right? Now, here's the thing. Speaking of Felix, he went from just a supporting character in season 1 to more of a lead character in the following season, giving more meat and more depth as his character. We're seeing how he was dealing with his mother's mental health challenges, and how his relationship with Pilar changed his dynamics with the Salazars, and how he supported Victor. I really did love how he supported Victor. He was honestly a really great character. They gave him so much depth as season 1, which I appreciate that, right? Now, what I also feel that is that what I appreciate about his relationship with Pilar is that she accepted him for him, as opposed to when he was with Lake, right? Now, but as the seasons went on, we begin to see how Lake struggled to accept certain parts of herself as well. And I'm personally a firm believer that you can only accept other people to the extent which you can accept yourself, right? Now, in a way, everyone in the series was putting on a facade, right? Mia with her father, Victor with his family, Benji with Victor when he was hiding struggles with alcoholism, Pilar with her parents in regards to Felix being her boyfriend, Felix with his mom's mental health issues and struggles, Lake with her self-esteem. And sometimes when I think about it, I feel like Raheem was the only person who was the most transparent from the series from start to finish. Now, speaking of Raheem, I gotta touch on this. I really wanted Victor and Raheem together. I really did, right? I felt like Victor and Raheem were way more aligned. I really did, and I would have liked the series if they would have just taken a turn and maybe seen what Victor was like with Raheem. Actually allow them to have a relationship, and then maybe he went back to Benji. Because I understand you gotta play into it. You know, you gotta have Benji as the end game, that's cool. But I would have liked to have seen that, right? I just feel like sometimes with these mainstream shows, it's okay to show two same-sex individuals from the same culture and background. as lead romantic character leads. That's okay to do that, guys. It's okay. It's totally okay, right? I didn't mind that Benji was white. I don't want to make that a thing. I didn't mind that he was white. It's just I also felt him and Victor came from two different worlds. And that was very evident to me in the scene where, you know, his mom comes home and finds him having sex, and Benji was like, well, you can't accept us for who we are. Like, he was getting all this attitude with Victor's mom. And I'm like, bruh, first off, y'all are in high school and this is this woman's house. Second off, I'm pretty sure if you guys were even a heterosexual couple, she would still have an issue with you or her teenage son having sex in his bedroom. Hello? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, that was just the part, like, does he not understand this? He comes from a conservative Hispanic Catholic family. And I was wondering, is it maybe because Benji doesn't have as many challenges as he did in terms of coming out with his family and accepting sexuality, that, you know, he was not as understanding? I thought in a situation like that, Raheem would have understood and just went home. He would have said, I'm sorry, ma'am, and went home. But no, Benji had to stir it up with the mom. And I was like, bruh, I'm like, are y'all really aligned? There was a scene where they got the restaurant for Benji's birthday, and Benji had to share with Victor that he was, you know, a recovering alcoholic. And, you know, Victor was like, why didn't you tell me? And then Benji was like, everything's such a big deal for you, Victor. And I'm gonna say this, playing devil's advocate for Benji. I understood where Benji was coming from because everything kind of was like a big deal for Victor, it almost feel like after a while. And the thing is that for Benji, he's true to this, not new to this. This is why for me personally, I don't this is sounding kind of way, I would never date someone who just came out. I would never do it. Like, what I mean is, like, you're just coming to terms with your sexuality. If you're just coming out to your family or something like that, but you've been aware of what your sexuality is and coming to terms with that yourself, that's one thing. I don't mind that. But if you're just not coming to terms with who you are in your sexuality, I don't think I would date you. Because I feel like the playing field is not even. I'm not in that place anymore. I haven't been in that place for years. And I'm not sure I'll have the patience. And I feel like it'd be wiser for them to meet someone who either has the patience for that or is also in that same space as them. You know? And that's also because I wouldn't want to feel like a test drive. I'm just being completely honest. Right? I actually understood Benji's frustrations in that. Right? But I also felt like they just came from two totally different worlds. And I wish that when he was at the door at the end, I think it was the season 2 finale, I wish it would have been Raheem. I wish it would have. You know, Raheem was very comfortable in himself, but he was still navigating some of the same things in the same world that Victor was going through. Victor accepted Raheem. Like they were friends too first. That was what made it great. They were friends. So I really would have appreciated that, I felt like. You know what I mean? I really honestly would appreciate it. I felt like Raheem and Victor were different in so many ways, but they also complement each other at the same time. And that was something I appreciated a lot between those two. That was another thing about this series, is that it covered a lot of different topics about what it actually means to be gay. You know, especially in the scene where Victor was in the coffee shop with Benji and his friends, and, you know, they were talking with Benji, telling him like, oh, you know, he doesn't like the typical jock. And they challenged a lot of these notions, which I appreciated that. They talked about it, because I'm sure these are discussions that people are having, straight or gay, right? And they're bringing these discussions to the forefront. So I appreciate that. I honestly appreciate that. I want to just quickly touch on the fact, this is a super quick review, guys. The age in Love, Victor. I think a lot of people had issues with the fact that the actors and actresses were a lot older. I think that was for consent reasons, because even though they're in high school, the actors are filming scenes that I don't know if Hollywood would be okay with minors filming that scene. So I don't know if that had a part into play with it, probably, because they wanted to be able to have them be in certain situations that maybe you couldn't have a minor consent to while being on screen. I think that's part of it. That's what I think it is, honestly. My personal opinion. In a lot of ways, this show kind of reminded me of Degrassi. I don't know if you guys remember Degrassi, Next Generation. It reminded me a lot of Degrassi, because it had a lot of those dynamics where it was clearly like a young adult series, but it had something for like older adults like myself to watch and engage and enjoy in this series, right? Whereas I think it was completely young adult would have been too PG, where I really couldn't relate to any of it, because some of the situations were pretty adult. Like Benji being a recovering alcoholic at 16 or 17, that's young, Papo. That's pretty young. That's a little too adult. But some of the things you have to suspend belief for when you're watching the series. By the way, this is all a spoiler alert, so if you haven't seen it, I don't know what to tell you. But I had to suspend belief for certain things, like a 67-year-old, like being a recovering alcoholic. We know it's not possible, but it's like the odds of that happening, right? But I'm like, okay, they're trying to make it appeal to some of the adults. Because a lot of times I did forget they were in high school. And then other times I remember they were in high school, right? At the same time. So I felt like it gave something for the younger audience and the older audience like myself as well. But anyways, guys, this is my super short review of Love, Victor, all 3 seasons, in probably 10 minutes or less, depending on when this video posts. Let me know your guys' thoughts below in the comment below. And if you guys haven't seen this series, I definitely recommend checking it out. I've put the link below in the description section. Definitely check it out. Once again, guys, if you are resonating with the content that I'm posting on this channel, please like, share, and subscribe. And I'll see you guys in the next one. I'm out.